Bad souvenir sweatshirts and Irish coffee both warm you up. That's why a lot of tourists buy them in San Francisco, in the summer. If you live around here, that won't surprise you, but it might if you live someplace else. Both sweatshirts and Irish coffee sell well because of what customers do and do not know about what they want, which is a crucial issue in selling to a target audience. That also makes them a good way to demonstrate the real difference in meaning between words like data, information, and knowledge, and how businesses can use that meaning for product development. The link tying sweatshirts and Irish coffee together is the weather, or more specifically, the fog. It's pretty common to see an entire family of visitors wearing matching San Francisco sweatshirts at places like the Golden Gate Bridge or Fisherman's Wharf. Chances are they didn't plan on wearing matching sweatshirts that day. They bought them that morning because they were freezing and were desperate to get warm now. Why didn't they just bring their own warm clothes? Because they had no idea San Francisco was that cold in the summer. Of course, the fact that San Francisco is foggy is not a secret. The issue is that tourists know there is fog, but they don't consider when there is fog. We may not be aware of it, but we're always considering things like data, information, and knowledge when we think about the weather. Fortunately, there's already a structure that helps us navigate this. It's called the Wisdom Pyramid, and we can walk through it using the weather as an example. At the bottom, the largest chunk is data. That's the raw metrics around whatever system we're talking about. Raw weather data looks like this, which isn't of much value because it's not organized. To be useful, data needs to be organized. When you organize data, it becomes information. When we organize our weather data, we can say something useful, like it's 48 degrees with a 15-mile-per-hour wind at 10 a.m. on July the 10th in San Francisco. Wait a minute, it's July in California and the temperature is only 48 degrees? How can that be? Being able to ask that question brings us to the knowledge level. Knowledge is looking at information and adding things like memory, context, pattern recognition, and comparisons, and from all of those things together, some kind of meaning. Meaning involves subjectivity. A San Franciscan will look at that weather info and say, yeah, right, that's the summer fog pattern. Mornings are freezing because of the fog, then the sun burns it off around 1 o'clock, and then the fog comes back around 5. This is the level where the tourists screw up. Why? Because there's more than one pyramid happening at the same time. They wind up ignoring the information in front of them and instead applying knowledge from a different context. So even if they know that San Francisco is a foggy place, it's overwhelmed by their default knowledge that it's summer and it's California. That triggers expectations of a completely different pattern, which leads to completely insufficient wardrobe choices. The souvenir shops in San Francisco know this, and they respond by shifting their product mix in anticipation of these freezing tourists. In most other summer destinations, t-shirts are front and center. In San Francisco, it's the sweatshirts, prominently out front at the height of summer. Well, so what? Like any smart business, their customers asked for something and they gave it to them. That's being customer-focused, but it's not exactly innovative. For innovation, you have to move up the pyramid from knowledge to understanding. If knowledge is about observing what's happening, understanding is about why it's happening. That's where the Irish coffee comes in. Irish coffee wasn't invented in San Francisco, but it was introduced to the United States in 1952 at the Buena Vista Cafe, right near Ghirardelli Square. The inspiration for bringing Irish coffee to San Francisco was based on that same knowledge of San Francisco's summer fog pattern. The story goes that Stanton Delaplane, a travel writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, was trying to head home from Ireland when his flight had to turn back to the airport because of bad, foggy weather. While waiting at the airport for the weather to clear, a bartender served the cold, tired passengers what became known as Irish coffee, a warm, soothing mix of coffee, sugar, cream, and of course, Irish whiskey. A perfect fit for the weather, and just as importantly, the mood. Delaplane instinctively matched the pattern of the dreary weather of the Irish coast to that of his hometown of San Francisco. He did better than know. He understood. His friend Jack Kepler also happened to own the Buena Vista Cafe, so when he returned to San Francisco, he brought the recipe with him, and they got to work on perfecting their approach. 66 years and over 30 million Irish coffees later, it's still bringing crowds into the cafe, so that both tourists and locals can warm up to a cozy drink no matter what the weather or time of day. Like most products, sweatshirts are a direct response to a customer's known and stated need. If the customer says, "I'm cold and I need a sweatshirt," any smart business can provide it. A nice warm Irish coffee is also an answer to the same "I'm cold" question, but from the perspective of someone who understands more than the customer does. That's a hallmark of a true innovation. An innovation is an answer to a question nobody thought to ask, but makes obvious sense once you see it. So what about the last, tiniest layer of our pyramid, wisdom? Wisdom is about what you should do, given the understanding you've built from everything else beneath it. When you understand the why behind San Francisco fog, you know it's the result of cool, wet air over the ocean being pulled across the land by the warm air rising above the hot inland valleys to the east. It also tells you that sweatshirt sales will probably fall in the long term. With climate change, the oceans are getting warmer, meaning that the temperature differential is decreasing steadily. Sure enough, the number of foggy days per year in San Francisco has been declining. So is Irish coffee at the same risk if there are fewer foggy days? Not really. Unlike sweatshirts, Irish coffee isn't about a rational need, it's about desire. Desire creates its own motivation. It's not about logic. Sure, Irish coffee is always a great fit for a cold, foggy day, but the Buena Vista Cafe sells thousands of them year-round, all day long, regardless of the weather. It's a product that's become part of the experience of visiting San Francisco. This is a key element to achieving a true innovation, thinking beyond the functional benefit of the product to the fundamental idea it represents and the complete experience around it. So think about the product category you work in and try to figure out where on the pyramid your team is and where your customers are. How well do they match up? Are you making any bad assumptions by incorrectly borrowing knowledge from other contexts, the way the chilly tourists are? More importantly, beyond your knowledge, how well do you really understand what makes your category tick? What's your version of Irish coffee? What can you create that your customers can't think to ask for, but would love to have?
And if you find yourself in San Francisco, please look me up. We can talk about making your brand more powerful over one of these, no matter what the weather. Thanks so much for watching. Cheers.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.